This podcast is a proud member of the Paranormality Podcast Network.
Hello, and welcome to the ParaUnity podcast. Tonight we have with us Jim Winter from Transcendent Paranormal Society, based out of Dubuque, Iowa. But before we bring Jim on, let's talk a little bit about Dubuque. Iowa's first city, Dubuque, lies at the junction of Iowa, Illinois, and Wisconsin, a region locally known as the Tri-State Area. It serves as the main commercial and industrial center for the area, and with 5 colleges, it is also the educational and cultural hub. It is one of the few cities in Iowa with bluffs, and a tourist destination featuring the city's unique architecture and Mississippi River location. Dubuque has long been a center for manufacturing, but the economy grew rapidly and diversified into other areas in the first years of the 21st century. By 2005, the city led the state and the Midwest in job growth, ranking as the 22nd fastest growing economy in the United States. Alongside industry, the city has large healthcare, education, tourism, publishing, and financial service sectors. The current city of Dubuque was named after Julian Dubuque, a lead miner originally from Quebec, Canada, and was officially chartered in 1833, located in the unorganized territories of the United States. The region was designated as the Iowa Territory in 1838 and was included in the newly created state of Iowa in 1846. With its tag as the oldest in Iowa comes many ghostly haunts. Called Mary Fran by students, this hall at Clark College was built in 1924 and is said to be haunted by the school's founder, Mary Frances Clark. Students have experienced unexplained footsteps in the hall and an uneasy feeling of being watched, and they have seen a shrouded apparition near the chapel. In other reports, the 4th floor of the dorms, which is now used for storage, is haunted, and there is a ghostly nun who once hung herself who bleeds all over the floor. Students have also reported an etching appearing on the windows that reads, "Help me." The Redstone Inn, built in 1894 by a man who was forced to jump ship in the town and ended up prospering, owning a wagon empire. Staff and guests nowadays have reported seeing the apparition of a distinguished-looking gentleman, while the owners have claimed to heard disembodied footsteps. Ghost cats have also been known to call this comfy inn home. According to the staff and guests at the historic Hotel Julian, sightings of the apparition of a man in period clothing on the upper floors of the hotel aren't uncommon, and neither are the legends surrounding his appearance. Some believe the specter is Al Capone, who frequently stayed at the hotel and is even rumored to have owned it at various points in his life. Lastly, we have the Grand. Haunts at this opera house, built between 1889 and 1890, like to pull pranks. The lights operate by themselves, the cameras and tape recorders behave strangely. Witnesses have also heard ghostly singing coming from a seemingly empty stage, and apparitions have been seen as well. The ghosts here are loved by the people who run this opera house because they seem to love the theater, and they don't do anything terribly frightening. Now, help me welcome to the ParaUnity podcast, Jim Winter, for a first-hand look at some great haunted locations and some insight into the science of paranormal investigations used in Dubuque, Iowa. Jim, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am fantastic. I gotta say, obviously, you have a sweet spot in my heart, being since this is my team, too.
Right, exactly.
So, Jim, what got you interested in the paranormal?
Well, I'd always been interested in the paranormal shows as a young adult, watching them, but never really thought about getting into paranormal investigation. But then in September of 2015, my mom went in for heart surgery, and she didn't make it out. She passed away in the operating room. And so that was a little traumatic. And that night, I went to my house where I grew up, and my mom collected teddy bears. And my dad said, why don't you take something in your mom home to remember her by and comfort you? And so I meticulously looked at all of her teddy bears and focused on 5 or 10 of them that I knew were her favorite, and picked one out and took it home. And I'm not afraid to admit that night I slept with the teddy bear. And the next morning when I woke up, there was a green mark on its forehead And that mark was not there when I picked it up from her house because, again, I very closely looked at all the animals before I picked one. And my mom's favorite color happened to be green. So for me, that was a sign that she was there. She was comforting me, letting me know everything was fine. And 9 months later, my only brother committed suicide. And so, again, another traumatic event, unexpected. And at that point, I was like, I really want to try and find out what happens when we pass on. I've had 2 of my family members pass away in 9 months. I need to find some answers or try and find some comfort at least. And I really enjoyed helping people. So the first opportunity that arose for me to go on a paranormal investigation and cover it as a journalist, I took it, and I was hooked from there.
So you said you covered it as a journalist. So
Yes.
Can you explain that a little bit more?
Sure. A team was coming to Edinburgh Manor in Scotch Grove, Iowa, which is only about 45 minutes from Dubuque, and I offered to cover their investigation on a freelance basis. So what I was going to do is come cover their 2-day public investigation they had there and write some articles up about it for him and his website, but also to pitch out to magazines and publications. So I spent the 2 days there investigating just like they did, covering them, talking to people, and by the time I was done with that 2-day investigation, I knew that was definitely something I wanted to pursue.
Okay, and then so from after spending those couple days there, that really kind of lit that fire for you. I have to admit
Yes.
that the Edinburgh Manor, that's on my bucket list right now. So we'll need to talk about it after the show.
Yes, I've been there 3 times, and every single time is amazing.
Yeah, and then we've had Curtis on the show as well too, and he has stories upon stories from the hours upon hours he's been in there.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so you did your interviews and you did your journalistic view of this. Mm-hmm. What got you to go from the journalism side to the investigation side?
Well, being a newspaper editor for the first 20 years of my professional career, I'm a very logical thinker, but I also have an insatiable curiosity, and I love to do historic research. So those 3 traits I thought played very well into being a paranormal investigator, because when you go into a location, you always want to try and debunk and come up with a logical explanation for things first. So my logic played in there. The insatiable curiosity, just going to a place, not knowing what you're going to encounter, that was perfect. And then the historic research, which is obviously something you have to do with any location, specifically house investigations and private investigations. You have to know about the property before you go there. So to me, it was just a natural transition from going from a logical newspaper journalism covering it to being an investigator. And I wrestled at the beginning about, okay, I'm a logical person, I'm a logical thinker. Do I really believe that ghosts exist? Do I really believe that there is something there? But within the first 5 minutes of being at Edinburgh Manor on that first investigation where I was a journalist, I had an experience, and I've heard and seen things since then that I cannot logically explain. So I've kind of made the transition.
It doesn't take long when some of that stuff starts to happen.
Correct. Exactly.
So were you able to get joined in with a group, or did you start your own group when you first started out?
Coincidentally, the team that I covered at the Edinburgh Manor event, the director of that team apparently liked what I was doing and saw that I had some interest, and he asked me if I wanted to be part of a chapter he was starting in Dubuque and be the lead investigator of that chapter. And I was very humbled and honored and decided to do that. And we interviewed other people. The whole idea and the whole premise of what the director was doing was to bring 6 strangers together and train them to become a paranormal team. And so that's what we did for a year and a half. I trained with that team, and for about a year, the rest of the team members trained with that team. But then in October of 2018, we were getting to the point where we were starting to get busier, more inquiries, and our thought process was it's really difficult when you have a director who lives 4 or 5 hours away and you're responding to local people to be able to respond to them quickly enough in the way you want. So we felt at that point that we had been trained well enough, and it behooved us to break off and form our own team just so we could respond to the local people better. So in October of 2018, that's when Transcendent Paranormal Society was formed.
Yeah, and that makes perfect sense. It's too hard to go through all the chain of commands when you're that far away.
Right,
So,
exactly.
I think it's a great choice. Yes, I'm
Thank you.
I'm a little biased, but that's okay.
Right.
So we know you're a founder, and you're actually the co-founder because you
Correct.
and our friend Amy were actually the two founders of the group. Who else is in the
Yes.
group?
Well, you're the newest you're the newest member, but you're certainly not new to the paranormal field. We have Allie Schmalz, who is she was one of the original members, and she is a naturalist, so she is a scientist by trade and has a very logical mind, very logical approach to things. We have Tanner McInerney. He was one of the original members as well with the other team. And then we have Alicia Frederick, who is newer. She joined the team about a year after we started training. And she's come along very well. She's doing a great job, and she's catching evidence and having lots of great personal experiences. So I'm very happy with the six main people we have on our team. And then we also have my daughter. My daughter Kalina is 14, and she's a junior investigator now. So she joined us at our public investigation we had in March, and she enjoys it. And then we have a couple other people who help us with scouting locations and keeping track of things.
Yep, I think, again, like I said, I'm biased, but I think we have a great team. I got one
Yes.
thing I do have to say with Alicia is some of the investigations we went on, especially with her still being kind of fairly new to this, just the brightness in her eyes when she finds some kind of evidence that shows up.
Oh, yes.
Or her personal
Yes.
experiences. It's so great. I love it.
Right, exactly. And we try and encourage that as much as possible, because that's part of the learning process. And the more you can be constructively criticize and give them feedback, the better they're going to be.
Yep, absolutely. And that's one of the things that's hard to keep track of, especially when you've been doing this for a long time, is keeping that spark going. So, but I think the group that we have, I think we all feed off of each other very, very well.
Right. And part of the reason you mentioned that we have co-directors, co-founders, Amy and I, when we formed this team, we felt it was very important that it wasn't just one person in charge of all 6 or 7 or 8 people. It was a team effort. And whenever you hear me talk about the team, I don't say my team. I say our team. It's everybody's team. It just happens to be that I'm one of the 2 people who lead it in a certain direction. So we're big into it being our team, not my team.
Yep, absolutely. So tell us a little bit about Dubuque. I mean, most people aren't sure where it's at, let alone a lot of people probably don't even know how to pronounce it correctly. So,
right.
But tell us a little bit about the area.
Sure. Dubuque is right on the Mississippi River on the eastern side of Iowa. It is actually right across the Mississippi River from where Illinois and Wisconsin meet Iowa. So you can actually leave Dubuque and travel into 3 states in about a 5-minute span. So it's pretty cool. It's the oldest city in Iowa. It has the oldest church in Iowa, the first park in Iowa, the oldest newspaper in Iowa. So it's full of history. And there's a lot of little towns around Dubuque in southwest Wisconsin, northeast Illinois, and then northeast Iowa that are also very small historic towns that have lots of great locations to go investigate. And Dubuque especially, and even Galena, which we haven't really investigated there yet, but are very proud of their history and embrace it. And so that's been almost every place we've gone to has been extremely welcoming and wanting us to come in and help out or investigate public historic locations. So I consider it we're pretty lucky that we're in this location, that we're able to help a 3-state area and have so many places that are just so full of history that it's rife with investigation possibilities.
Oh, absolutely. Anytime you get all that good history and you get a location that's actually going to take care of their historic places, I mean, right. It's a gold mine. But to go along with the history, you also have to, accept that the paranormal is probably in those historical places.
Right.
What are some good, possibly haunted places here in Dubuque?
Oh, man. Well, we've investigated a lot of them. Probably the one that stands out the most is the Grand Opera House. We've been there 3 times, and every single time we catch great evidence. There's the Five Flags Theater, another old, and theaters and opera houses just as a whole seem to have more paranormal activity than other places. So that's a place that's really great to investigate. We've investigated the old jail in Dubuque. Didn't really get a lot of evidence there. We've been to the Franklin Hotel in Strawberry Point, historic hotel there. There's a place in southwest Wisconsin that we don't say where it is or what the name of it is because we're the only paranormal team that they want investigating there. So that's a awesome, wonderful location that we get to investigate. And we've been lucky enough to have a couple people call us into their homes to help them out, and even a business called us in to help because they didn't know what was going on their property. So lots of great locations.
Yeah, and you actually, speaking of the Grand, we actually just had our public event there.
We did. We had our first public investigation event March 30th. We actually, when we put tickets up for sale 3 months early, it sold out in 6 days, which we were amazed by because we know teams who have public events at Edinburgh Manor, which is one of the most famous haunted locations in the Midwest, and they don't sell it out. So we weren't anticipating selling it out that fast, but it was limited to 20 people. They paid $50. They came in. They got pizza. They saw a presentation of our best evidence so far, and then they actually participated with the team members on a full-fledged investigation. So exactly the way we would do it if there were just 6 of us investigating. This time there were just 26 instead. So it was very successful. We've gotten a lot of rave reviews for it, and it's something where the Grand is open to us coming back and doing it every year there. So that's something we'll probably definitely be pursuing each year.
Oh yeah, without question. Is there any good evidence that you want to share with us from the Grand?
Oh, well, we've caught voices, we've caught footsteps going across the stage, we've gotten direct responses to questions we've asked. We've had really great spirit box sessions there, and at the March 30th investigation, we actually performed the Estes methods on stage at the end of the night. So we had, and I can explain what that is, or we can wait till later, but we actually took one of the guests, asked for a volunteer, and she went up on stage and actually was the person listening to the spirit box blindfolded with noise-canceling headphones on. So to us, that validated that experience even more, that we were able to have a guest do it and get the results that we did. And there's other evidence there that we've caught as a member of our other team when we were training there. We believe we caught an elemental or a fairy in the costume shop on the 5th floor of the Opera House, which you can see that video on YouTube. It's publicly available. If you look up Grand Opera House Fairy, you'll be able to find it, but on a thermal imaging camera. So it was pretty impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess I should mention with this too, the evidence that you have, we actually have it listed out on the website.
Correct. We do have a website, www.transcendentparanormal.com. So you can go on there, and yes, we have evidence posted from all 4 of our cases that we've done so far. We just finished up another investigation last weekend, so that evidence will be up there if we get the owner's permission in a few weeks. And yeah, it's great putting that evidence out there and having people listen to it and respond and saying, wow, that's great stuff, amazing. And sometimes I appreciate constructive feedback. So if somebody doesn't think it was a good piece of evidence or doesn't think it was paranormal, I appreciate getting that feedback too.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one thing that I should mention to everybody that's listening is not only do you kind of encompass the whole idea of the ParaUnity that we have, that you travel around the country a lot of times and meet with different teams.
Right.
And I mean, I absolutely respect you so much for that. But
Thanks.
What would you say is your favorite place that you've been?
Oh, God. I don't know if I can limit it to just one.
You can give me a couple. That's fine.
Okay, Edinburgh Manor, obviously, just because of what it is, but everybody would say that. So I've had the opportunity to go to the Palmer House Hotel in Sauk Center, Minnesota. Hey, Kelly, hope you're listening. To investigate there with 4 other paranormal teams. That was just a few months ago, and that was amazing, even though I had to cut it short because of a blizzard that was coming. The Grand Opera House, like I said, is always a wonderful location. We always get great evidence when we go there. And the tavern that I mentioned in Southwest Wisconsin, that is kind of our honey hole. That is a place with some very intense energy. And every time we've gone there, which is 3 times, we've gotten really great stuff there as well.
Sure. Well, going to all these places, obviously you're going to need your different types of equipment that you use. And, speaking personally, we have a very nice selection of equipment.
Yes, we do.
What would you say is your favorite piece of equipment?
I'm kind of a purist. I think my favorite piece of equipment is simply a digital recorder. I love it when we catch an EVP, whether it's a direct response to something we're asking or just a disembodied voice. I still get thrills when I hear that on when reviewing evidence. And I'm a big fan of the K2 meter. We've used that in investigations where we've gotten it to go off on command, which is really impressive. So to me, though, if you're starting out as an investigator, those are the 2 things that you need that are essential. And both of them, you can get each one for $70 or less. So it's not very expensive. But like you mentioned, we have quite a bit of other equipment, and that's the nice thing about when you have Amy, who ran a team in the Chicago suburbs before she came here and had her own equipment, and you were an investigator for a long time before you joined us. You have your own, and then when we split off from our other team, I purchased a whole bunch of equipment as well. So it's nice to have 3 people bringing all that together. But we have REM pods, we have multiple K2 meters, we have MEL meters, temperature devices, motion sensors, DVR camera system. So we have pretty much laser grids. We pretty much have everything we think we need, and you don't have to have a lot of equipment to be a good investigator. That's one of the misnomers that some teams have is, I feel the need to have $20,000 worth of equipment because that validates us as a team, and that means we're an awesome team. That's great if you can afford that and have that kind of equipment, but you don't have to have all that to be a great investigator and to catch evidence. So that's definitely something I need to share with people, is that you don't have to have a huge budget and tons of equipment to do the job.
Yeah, exactly. Because when I first started out, I was always worried that I needed to buy equipment, and I was told my very, very first one, they said, bring a tape recorder, a piece of paper, and a pencil.
Yep, exactly. Exactly.
Do you have any kind of tips or tricks that seem to work good for you for getting a little bit better responses?
Well, we always take the approach that everybody that we're talking to, for the most part, was a person in life. So you have to talk to them and treat them like a person. We do not provoke spirits ever. There are times, like our investigation this last weekend, where we're firm and but we're not going to provoke them. We're not going to tell them to touch us. We're not going to tell them to scratch us. We're not going to tell them to manifest themselves, stuff like that, because that just gets you into trouble. So we treat them like they were people, and that seems to have worked every investigation we've been on. And I would say be patient. That's very important, because there are times where you're on an investigation for 5 or 6 hours and you don't hear anything, and it's very easy after a couple hours of talking to nothing in a dark room to get discouraged and start getting frustrated, and that frustration will affect your ability to investigate in a good way. So you have to be sure to not get frustrated, because just because you can't hear them doesn't mean they're not responding to you. And then one thing personally that I always do is, if I'm having anything going on in my life, whether it's jobs, relationships, stuff at home, if I have anything going on that may impact an investigation negatively, I always make sure that night before I go on the investigation to take time to just clear all that out and get all that bad energy out of my system, because I don't want to be carrying that into an investigation that could potentially have a grumpy old man or somebody who doesn't really want us to be there, or, God forbid, a negative entity where they would be able to feed off that. So, yeah, those are the few things I would definitely share.
Yep, I'm the same way. I always try to clear my head well before I get there, and then also I usually take a few minutes before we get started just to kind of sit by myself in the place, just to kind of get a feel and kind of let it, I guess, embrace me, I guess would be the right word. And and I like that you did mention to everybody that you don't have to go out there and tell them to touch you or scratch you or throw stuff at you, to be able to get good responses. Sorry, Tanner, But yeah, I mean, knocking is okay.
Yeah.
I know when he listens, he's going to probably be mad at me, but that's okay. I had to take that shot.
It's all right. It's Tanner. He'll understand.
So tell us about the public events that we have coming up.
Sure. Well, we have on August 24th, we have our next public investigation event at the Five Flags Theater in Dubuque, which is a historic location. There's actually been a few theaters on that site, and two of them burned down. And the one that's still standing has been there for, at least 80 years. So it's an iconic location in downtown Dubuque, and we've been there a few times for just regular investigations. We've caught a lot of good evidence there. So we wanted to approach them and say, hey, can we do a public event here? And they agreed. So that's on Saturday, August 24th. Tickets will go on sale for that May 25th. And there'll be a link on our website, transcendentparanormal.com, where you can buy tickets. We'll also put that link on our Facebook page that you could go to get tickets. But and it'll start at 7 p.m., a little earlier than the grand one. And again, it'll be pizza, a presentation of our best evidence, and then a full-fledged investigation with the team. Guests get to use the equipment. We explain the equipment. They get to use it. And if it's anything like our investigation at the Grand Opera House, I think every single guest who was there had a personal experience, at least one, if not more. And so we expect it to sell out in about a week, like the Grand Opera House did, if not faster. And then September 27th and 28th, there's a new paranormal convention in Menominee, Wisconsin called Paranomicon. Johnsdale Paranormal Group out of Minnesota is putting on that convention. It's at the Mabel Tainter Theater in Menominee, so it's a very historic old theater. I've been there once, and it's just an amazing place. It is haunted, and they're only selling 261 tickets for that convention because that's all the theater will hold. So we were asked to come and be a vendor at that event, so we're extremely excited about that. Grant Wilson's going to be there from Ghost Hunters. He's going to be the lead keynote address and leading an investigation one of the nights. Lauren Coleman, who is one of the world's foremost authorities on Bigfoot and cryptids, is going to be there. One of the producers of Hellier is going to be there, and then a few other paranormal celebrities will be making an appearance as well. So should be a real good time.
Yeah, it absolutely sounds like it. Hopefully I'm able to free up my schedule to be able to go with you.
Yes. You have to fight with Amy for it.
Well, if Amy wants to go, I'm gonna just let her go. So I don't mess with Amy. So
No.
Well, Jim, is there anything else you want to add before we kind of head our separate ways here for the night?
No, I think we're good. I appreciate the opportunity to talk paranormal. I always enjoy sharing our experiences and trying to educate the public about what we do.
Yeah, you and I, we have a bad habit of when we get together talking paranormal, it ends up taking a lot longer than we ever expect.
Which is fine.
No, yeah, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I will put links up for the website and for the Facebook on our on the show notes for tonight, and the Instagram as well too. So that way we have it all together. Like I said, Jim, I appreciate you taking the time tonight. I know you've been busy lately with all the investigations and reviews and everything like that. So
I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you very much.
All right, Jim, have a good night.
You too.
Thanks again to Jim Winter with Transcendent Paranormal Society for being our guest today, and thanks to all of you for tuning in. Please take a minute to give us a review on iTunes or whatever directory you listen to us on. It means a lot to us, and we want to hear your feedback to help make our show a little bit better. My name is Brandon, and you've been listening to the best place to bring our paranormal teams a little closer together, the ParaUnity Podcast.